All right, so hi, welcome to class. So you're probably wondering what's on the screen and what's going on here. So for the 9:30 class, I send an email to everybody. There's some folks who just can't make it to class because of ice or whatever. So I have decided to go ahead and do a class via Zoom for them so they can still do class. Y'all got that email right? All right. So this is a class I decided to record. Okay. So they will be joining us via Zoom. All right. So let's talk about what's going on today under the announcements. So how are you guys? How are you guys doing? Are you guys thawed out? Did you guys have fun in the snow? What did y'all do? Huh? Drank hot chocolate and been like, that's pretty. Can you melt now? Right. Like when you don't have the appropriate accoutrement, it's too cold. Yeah, I got it. Got it. Anybody else do anything fun? Snowman. Yeah, there was enough snow to do a snowman, which is like tells you everything you need to know of how much snow was out there. Too much, right? Anybody do anything like kind of nesty, like you ate chili or you made like cookies or you just watched Netflix? Yes. I was supposed to make bread and I didn't. But I made chili and cornbread, so I guess that counts. It's a type of bread. I made two of them, two like things of cornbread. My family goes through it very quickly. All right, so moving on. Week 2 is due. When is week 2 due? Monday, 9 a.m. Yay! Okay. So week 2 is due then. Let's talk about the discussion posts, ladies and gents. The discussion posts are they were great, actually. I really enjoyed the discussion posts. Sorry, they need to see me. I really enjoyed the discussion post and how you guys kind of are asking each other questions and kind of enjoying kind of having a conversation. What I need from you guys, though, is that when you're doing your discussion posts for this class, please do them in the form of a paragraph, which means do not take the questions, cut and paste, and then give me like answers to the questions right after, right? Like write it in paragraph form. And some of you did that. Thank you very much for doing that. I also no bullet points. Like it's an English class. Let's write it in paragraph form. Make sense? Yes? Okay, great. All right. Let's talk about Zoom and kind of you're kind of seeing it here. So because this happened very early, like what, week 1, week 2 of class? Is this week 3? I don't know. This is week 2. Dang. Because this happened in week 1 and going into week 2, we didn't really get a chance to talk about kind of what happens if there's a disaster, flood, famine, epidemic, whatever. So this is something that's available to us. So if something happens where you can't get to class because there's flooding or there's ice or something, this is going to be my default. Like I would rather you stay home and be safe and just show up through Zoom than to like put your lives in danger. Just don't do that. We all went through COVID. We know how to work Zoom now. It's a thing. So let's just use that. Make sense? Yes? No? Thank you. No? Middle? Middle? Why middle? Yes. Okay. I'm I'm confused. All right. Are you guys ready to take roll? No? Get ready. Thank you, Kit. All right. Can I also ask one person to get on the Zoom and like put yourselves on mute and just kind of monitor the chat for me because I'll be going through the lesson and won't be able to see the chat. Just FYI. Okay. All right, guys. Let's do roll. Roll after class. Awesome. Right. Here it is. And for those who are online, there it goes. So for those of you who are on Zoom and have the 9:30 class, that is your code. If you are in the 8 a.m. class, please email me so I can mark you here on the roll. Can I help that? I do. Thank you, thank you. I just need somebody to monitor the chat, and if somebody has a question, I can, because I won't be able to see it. And if you need to download stuff, it'll tell you, it'll prompt you to download it, but you should be able to see it on your screen. You want to try it to see? Yeah, try it. You'll be in a waiting room. It starts off as a waiting room. Bless you. Bless you. Are you guys good? Everybody signed in? You signed in online? Yes? No? Maybe? Possibly?
I'm in the 8 a.m. class.
All right, email me to make sure that I have you on the roll, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, everybody's in. Let me stop sharing here so I can share something else. All right, so we're going to go over the character as, oh, thank you. We're going to go over the character lesson here. And I'm going to preface this lesson by saying, you may think you know things about characterization, but I'm going to say you know nothing. Let's see, is everybody in that needs to be in? Because I won't see anybody. Yeah, everybody's here. Cool. All right, so let's share. Okay. Yes, even when it's just this, the captions show up. It's crazy. All right. So let's talk about characterization. Last time we actually talked about. Oh, I don't know why I'm last time we talked about doing social issues and annotations, correct? Do you guys have any questions about that? Seems kind of self-explanatory, correct? Yes. All right. Hi guys, I'm your professor. I don't work well when you guys are quiet. Please talk back. Hi. Okay. Hello. How are you? All right. So, let's get started. This is one of kind of like one of the most important, I keep saying one of the most important, if not the important, like launching pads to how we're going to talk about stories this semester. All right, so a couple of housekeeping things. You should have read a story at all ever, because this applies to all stories, all narratives. I'm probably going to be talking a lot about Story of an Hour. How many of you guys have read Trash already? Great. I may pull in stuff about trash today as well. Okay. We are going to have a lesson on just trash. It's going to be next week. It's going to be on Tuesday. Gird your loins. It's going to be amazing. All right. So you also need to be able to take notes. Taking notes is amazing. It's good for your soul. And also, all the answers are in your notes. You may want to just take notes. And whatever note-taking apparatus you have. Yes, sir. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. All right. And I want you to have a curious mind. Make sense? Yes? No? Oh, look, I hear voices. They exist. Oh my gosh. All right. So, what we are going to talk about, let me move our class here out of the way. Ready? Okay. So, what we're going to talk about here is essentially what characters are. So, I'm going to say this and preface this by saying everything you know about characters is wrong, or, comma, not deep enough, right? So, you know just enough to say you know something, but there's a deeper level to knowing about characterization and how characters work in a narrative, in a story, that isn't really completely taught, right? And you're probably saying, this is why I'm here to learn this. Yes, I didn't learn this stuff until I was in grad school. Yes. So I'm giving you the real. All right. So we're going to talk about what character is. We're going to talk about characterization and character arc and how that all plays together. And we're going to go through something called goal motivation conflicts. Hi, thank you. And how that plays into how a character is built. So we're really talking about the inner workings of story, the inner workings of what you see on the page, right? So we're going past the, this is kind of my interpretation of it versus this is the technique that the writer was using to make this argument. It's a whole different level, right? So I'm upgrading you. You're welcome. Okay. So we're going to start with an activity right here. I have so many little screens on here. All right. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to do this. Folks who are online, also, you get 3 minutes to do this, and you're welcome to share when it's time to share. I want you to write a short paragraph or tell me about a person, a story about your favorite person. I want you to describe them. What do they look like? What's the color of their hair? What do they usually wear? Color of eyes, the whole nine. And I want you to tell me what they are like. Do they have a smile that lights up a room? Are they a gentle, kind soul? Do they enjoy a dad joke? Right? And I want you to use words that describe their personality. A gruff personality that only warms when they get a cup of coffee in their hands, whatever that is, right? What drives them, what motivates them to get out of bed in the morning? What is their life goal and how they reached it, or did they ever reach it? I want you to write about this for 3 minutes. I know it says 5, but I want to get through this. So 3 continuous minutes, which means you start writing and you don't stop until this, right? All right, go. You too, people online. 3 minutes. All right. Wrap up that last thought that you guys had. Same for online. And I am looking for people to share. What do you guys got? Yes, go for it. Nice and loud so they hear you online. Uh-huh. That's your friend Levi. Blonde, blue eyes, and what? A golden retriever. They are friends, aren't they? I left my friend sleeping in my room this morning. Yeah. No, it happens. Call of the Wild is written that way. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Anybody else want to share with us? People online, you too? Anyone want to share? I have a wealth. You and then you. Wow, you should probably share that with her because you would probably win some points. Oh, so there's like a push. She's only 4 feet though. How much can you build it up? Oh, the little ones are the ones to be scared of. Noted. Thank you very much. That was very sweet. Very sweet. Valentine's Day is coming up, just FYI. Yes. Oh, y'all are warming my hearts. I only have one. I don't know why I said yes. One hearts. I am not a time lord. That is not a thing. Um, so that's wonderful. So that idea here that we just did, that exercise, what you did was what an actual writer does. They create a character. That is an example of characterization. You build a character based on certain traits. They don't pull that character from the ether. I don't care if they're an alien with purple skin and like a weird like antenna on their head, or if they're based on like a person from history. You're always building characters from something. You're building characters from maybe a person you know, character traits you admire, people from the past, people that you meet on the street, right? And you start building that together, you put that together, and that's what people are like naturally gravitating to when it comes to characters, right? So before we get to that, when we talk about characterization, I want to talk about something called narrative. Dun, 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 dun. Narrative is another word for story. And thus forth, right now, I will talk about stories as narratives because why? We're in college now and we use big words, right? So narratives exist for kind of as a nest for the character, right? Narrative is they literally say a sequence of events, of related events together, like a plot, right? We're going to get to plot in a couple of weeks. But I think one of the biggest ideas of narrative that I want to impart to you is that the narrative never starts in the beginning. It always starts in the middle. The story always starts in the middle. So think about things like, I don't know, Cinderella. Cinderella does not start with her mom and dad getting married or meeting. It doesn't start with her on her deathbed, her mother on the deathbed. It starts with the dad going off and like he comes back with like this woman and her two kids. starts in the middle, doesn't start at the beginning. Story of an Hour does not start with like the courtship of the Mallards. It starts with her learning that her husband is dead. That's the middle. Okay. So narratives never start at the beginning, it always starts in the middle. Watch any Marvel property, it starts in the middle, right? And I think that's one thing we need to understand because that's going to help us understand arcs, things like narrative arc or character arc later on. So let's talk about creating character here. Creating characters is fun and also infuriating, right? So there are several devices used to create characters. You've used several just in writing about the person that you love. Your favorite person in the world, you use several devices to do that, right? And so what I want you to take away is that everything on that page when it comes to character is a choice. Excuse me. It's a choice. None of it is on accident. Look, there's a reason why the narrator in Trash does not get a name. She's not named at all. There's a reason why Miss Emily is named Miss Emily and not Mrs. Emily. That's on purpose. And that choice being on purpose also means that that is part of the argument that the author is constructing in that story. The choices that they make is part of the argument. The fact that Miss Mallard like chunks deuce at the end and it's the joy that kills, that's part of the argument, right? So we also know that characters have something called a character arc. We're going to talk about that in a second. They have a goal, motivation, and conflict, and there's characterization. We also know that there's several types of characters: protagonist, antagonist, primary, secondary, static, flat, all the things. I'm going to go through them all. Okay? Make sense? Questions, comments, concerns, ideas, thoughts, counterpoints? Yes. No, no, because it's fiction. Yeah. Yeah. So question for those who didn't hear it online, the question is if the narrator or the character is using I and they're not named, should you assume that it is the writer who is being named here? No, you should not assume it because it's fiction, right? If it was something like nonfiction or a memoir, I think you can assume it because it's from their experience. You can't even assume it in poetry because the I is a character in poetry. I'm sorry? That it felt like a memoir? Yeah, I don't think it's a memoir based on what I know about her life. But yeah, I know just enough to know just enough. I don't even think she's married. Yeah, but I know. But the part of it that may feel like a memoir is that emotional attachment of feeling not enough. That actually feels very visceral to me as a reader, and that's probably what you picked up. Yeah. All right, let's talk about characters. There are two big types. I'm gonna go big to tiny. All right, it's going to be an inverted pyramid of awesomeness here about characters. We'll talk about primary and secondary characters. You may have heard about this. This is actually something you learned in high school. This is actually accurate what you learned in high school. Primary character. They're primary because they spend the most time on the page. They get the most screen time. There are actual like stories where the character's name is in the story, but they get very little screen time. And so you can make a debate on whether or not that story that character is a main character. I would argue it is not. Then you have the secondary character. The secondary character exists for two things: one, to help the primary character; two, to push the plot forward. That's it. That is the whole goal. That is the whole function. That is it. They do nothing else. They're not there to be pretty. They're not there to give you the meaning of life. They have two functions, and once they're done, right? You don't ever get to see them ever again. Make sense? Let me get a thumbs up if you get it. People online, are we good? Getting it? Not getting it? Do I have any questions? No? Thumbs up. Okay, good. All right, so let's go from primary and secondary to protagonists and antagonists. They're not as simple as you think they are, all right? How many of you guys learned protagonists and antagonists as protagonists are the good guys and antagonists are the bad guys? How many of you guys learned it that way? That is a lie. Please erase that from your memory banks. Let me tell you what it actually is. The protagonist is the lead character. We spend the most time with the protagonist. Whether they're good or bad is that's indifferent. We just spend the most time with them. Okay? And then we have the antagonist. The antagonist is who or what is in the way of what the protagonist wants. Emphasis on who or what. Because an antagonist doesn't necessarily have to be a person. You're welcome. The antagonist doesn't necessarily have to be a person. An idea, a culture. Today, my antagonist, the damn weather. I wanted to be warm. It didn't let me be great. The weather is the antagonist. We got beef. Right. It's what's challenging the protagonist from what they want. Right. So, example, you want an A in 1302, English 1302. Your antagonist could literally be waking up to be here in time for class. It could be D2L because D2L sometimes acts wonky. It could be Professor Fernandez because she does not take late work. See how that works? I am your antagonist. Hello. Just for you guys watching at home, nobody laughed at that joke. Nathan gave me a pity laugh, but he's used to it. He gives me pity laughs all the time. Do we understand? Correct? So if we're looking at Story of an Hour, who is the protagonist at Story Hour, you think? You think the husband is the protagonist? We spend a lot of time with the husband? Miss Mallard, right? The wife, right? The one who kicks rocks at the end, right? So who's the antagonist? The concept of her husband. Nathaniel's coming with the deep thoughts today. The thought of a husband. What else? What else could be the antagonist to Miss Mallard in that story? The husband could be, perhaps, but I'm going to put an asterisk next to the heart issues because I have a theory. Sexist society or society of the time, right? Because that was kind of the norm. Yeah. Anybody else? Huh? Oh, what's the answer? Yes, Kit. The husband still living and pumping blood through his veins. Definitely an antagonist to Miss Mallard. Let's talk a little bit about her heart issues, right? Because we're talking about a story of 1894 that we could really think about that as a euphemism from other things, right? So she is so delicate. Maybe one time she got so mad she cried, and so now she's made of porcelain. And so now she has heart issues. It could have been she just had a stroke or just been like so surprised it killed her because that happens too, right? So I put an asterisk next to heart issues because I have to realize the context of the story, 1894, right? You could die from a stroke. You could die from surprise. Yeah, that happens. One time I nearly died when a bunch of my students like got 100 on a test. I was like, what just happened? No, I'm kidding. That's never happened. First time for everything, guys. Okay. All right. Make sense? Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas? Nope. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh no, it was common in the 1800s. It was common. It was common when I was coming up. Something called flowers in the attic. Huh? Flowers in the attic messed everybody. Middle schoolers should not be reading Flowers in the Attic, but yet we did. Oh, you should look it up. We were all reading about incest in seventh grade. It was great. We passed that book around like it was like a burn book. It was great. Mm-hmm. Telltale Heart. Right. That he's a protagonist, right? But he is also not a good guy because he literally just killed somebody because he's schizophrenic. Right? So he's he's not well, depending on your definition of evil, right? Do you think killing people is evil or not? Or was he just a misunderstood versioning serial killer? He was going insane. That is true. Man, y'all are missing out of really interesting conversations in class. Okay. Anything from the chat? Everybody's good on the chat, Michael? Great. Thank you very much for doing that, by the way. So now we have the types of characters. So you see how we go from very big general, primary and secondary to like very specific, right? So now we have types of characters, and most of these are secondary characters, like the confidant. The confidant is the character that hears all the things. The main character or the protagonist relies on or confides into this character. Maybe they're at the barber shop and they're telling their barber everything that they can tell them, right? This is a best friend. This is MJ. This is MJ to Spider-Man, right? I don't know who that is. Who's that? That is a deep cut. I like that. That's a good one. I don't know that aria or opera, but hmm. Could you send that to me? Send that title to me? Yeah, I'm not gonna remember that. Send it to me. I mean, I'm a woman of many talents, but remembering is not one of them. All right, so then we have the static character. The static character is a character that is flat. It's also known as the flat character. It does He or she does not grow through the entire story. More than likely, they're a secondary character, but that character does not change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. How they were when they entered the story is the same as they went out, right? Example, Miss Mallard's sister. She don't change. She the same, right? Then we have the anti-hero. And listen up, everybody. I'm going to say a name, and somebody is going to debate me. And what I'm going to say is debate your mama, don't debate me. Batman is an anti-hero. Batman. Let me tell you why I say anti-hero Batman. Because the anti-hero is not a hero. They are indeed a hero. What makes them an anti-hero is that they do color outside the lines. They have an internal ethical kind of pull with them. There's a darkness within them, right? And so Batman can equally round up the bad guys and put them right at the feet of Commissioner Gordon, or dispense justice in and of itself. he could be judge, jury, executioner at any moment, right? And so that very, very blurred line makes him an anti-hero. It does not mean that he's a bad dude, just means he's a complicated dude. And he has his own kind of moral compass and code. See how I didn't say he was evil? He's not evil. Depending on which version. The Michael Keaton version, not so much insane, but like other ones, I'm just like, probably yes. 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 So he is an anti-hero. Another anti-hero, if you've ever seen this TV show called Luther with Idris Elba, he is an anti-hero. He's very much like, I dispense justice, I am justice, and he will arrest somebody, but he will also allow people to fall to the ground to their deaths. It just depends. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I don't know. Let's see. Right? Anti-hero versus a tragic hero. These are your typical heroes that everybody loves. This is your Captain Americas and Iron Mans. Oh my God, what makes them so tragic? A tragedy befalls upon them and they are self-sacrificing to help or to save other people. Captain America self-sacrificed to save the city of New York. Iron Man sacrificed himself to bring everybody back from the blip. And if I've spoiled any of these movies for you, get on the good foot and start watching things, right? So that's the difference between like a Batman and like Iron Man, Captain America, even Superman, if you depending on who Superman is in front of you, because oh my God. But I'm not going to go down that debate because we only have so much time. Questions, comments, concerns, ideas, thoughts? Make sense? Yes, a little bit more in depth than what you're used to, correct? Right? Because you're going to use all of these things to start writing about characters. So the activity that you did earlier, that's characterization. It's a literary device. I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to tell you the important part. Characterization is a literary device that is used step by step in literature to highlight and explain the details of a character in a story. It is in the initial stage in which the writer introduces the character with noticeable emergence. After introducing the character, the writer often talks about his behavior. Then, as the story progresses, the thought process of the character. What is interesting here is the part where we talk about the initial stage downwards. The initial stage is this person has blonde hair, is 4 feet tall, but towers over people, has blonde hair, and we know what they look like. That's the outline. It's the chalk outline of your character. And then the writer goes from outside in. Then it's what they're like, their behavior, the fact that like she's kind of scary, right? The fact that like what motivates them, the fact that she was in the U.S. military, which 4 foot and in the U.S. military, 5 foot, 4'10" in a she's a pistol. She's a pistol. I would like to meet her one day. I feel like no, I feel like I want to be like her friend, and I need her to like motivate me to do things. Be like, I know you can do this, but she'll say it in a not nice way, right? Um, right. So we get that inner part of that character. It's coloring essentially. They're coloring the character after the outline. So when you're looking at character, like you're looking at Miss Mallard, or you're looking at the unnamed narrator in Trash, or you're looking at Miss Emily, that's how you start. You start with how they look, what they're wearing, and then who they are and their behavior. Ah. Questions? Nope. Make sense? Yes. All right, cool. So this is what you look for in characterization. These are the 5 questions, the 5 things that you must ask yourself. Put a star next to them. what the character does versus what they think. If there's some inconsistency there, that tells you about the character. Also, that's the same for people, by the way. What they say versus what they do, there's manipulation, just FYI. What they want versus what they do. What drives or motivates them to act? What gets them up in the morning? What makes them say, this make me leap out of, maybe not leap, maybe ooze out of a warm bed on a cold day? Is it work because you got to literally keep the lights on? Is it the fact that you want to go play in snow? Is it that you have homework to do? What is it? What is it? What drives or motivates them to not act? What makes them say, yeah, I kind of want to do this, but I'm not gonna? Fear? Abandonment? What? What makes Miss Mallard like literally abandon her life? Yeah, I'm gonna kick rocks because I don't want to be here in this marriage. So bye. The woman died. What the? You know? And if they were alive for real, for realsies, if Miss Emily was alive and she came in here and she sat right there between you two, who are they? How would you know it's them? Clearly, Miss Emily would come in here with the finest that her wardrobe can give. She'd probably be decked out in gold, would probably have an Hermes bag, and would probably like, she'd be the type that would take out a little like moist towelette and wipe everything down before she sat down. She seems like the type, right? And we know that based on what's in the story. Make sense? Thumbs up if you get it. Thumbs down if you don't. Right? Make sure you use the appropriate finger. Okay. Thank you. Michael, anything in the chat? Okay. All right. So now let's talk about character arcs. So when you're writing your story charts, this is going to be one of those things that you're going to want to cling to, right? So when you ask me, and you will ask me, I don't know what to write for the story chart about the protagonist and the antagonist. I'm literally going to say, go to this lesson. Go to this lesson. Huh? They're posted online. Huh? Or the recorded video that I will perhaps put online. Nice try. It's here. Go to this lesson, right? So let's talk about the character arc. The character arc is how the character grows in a story. So I want you to think about who you were when you entered freshman English when you were in high school. Are you in freshman English in high school right now? Okay. So you think about like English like for like sixth grade. All right. So other than my boy in the front, who were you freshman English in high school? Who were you? Were y'all smart? Michael says, heck no. Normal kid that plays sports. Okay, who were you in high school? I freshman English. Were you one of those smart asses? You were a smart ass. I love it. Okay, we had regular dudes, smart ass. What else we have? Well, how were you? You were a theater kid. You're still kind of technically a theater kid, but you did change. So there's a theater kid. All right. So think about who you were. Ninth grade high school English or sixth grade middle school English, right? Think of who you were. Now, think of who you are now. Are you the same person? I kind of feel we need to unpack that, but not today. I feel that's a therapy session. Woo, as long as the therapist knows and y'all working on it, I'm good with it. What happened? Oh, yeah, they should be around. They did not talk to us when they built these rooms about plug situations. This is what happens when the people who are going to use the thing aren't at the table to use the thing, right? All right. No, at first, when I first started teaching in this room, these walls drove me insane. They're too bare for me. Like I need things on them, and also I hate the color, and I think it clashes with the green. But nobody asked me. Um, so I've threatened to put art on the wall, but I've not gone through with it yet. But one semester, that will happen. Huh? Yeah, I think this would be a really cool like place to like do a student mural, frankly. But that's just me. Nobody cares what I think. All right, so we talked about you guys in high school when you were younger and who you are now. We talked about how we hated that person that we were in the past, right? That's a character arc. Where you were to where you are now is a difference. That's the character arc. You've changed. Even if you're still a theater kid, you've changed, right? Even if just a little bit. And that's the thing. The change doesn't need to be big. It could be tiny. It could be a change of mindset. It could be a change of location. But there is a change. That's a character arc. Make sense? All right. So let's go over goal, motivation, conflict because it's importante. It's importante. Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying that this is not my theory. I did not create this, but I do use it. This is created by one Deborah Dixon, who is a writing coach for romance writers. This was taught to me by a writer. I don't write romance. She taught it to me. I used it. This is brilliant. I teach it to other people. I teach it to creative writing students that I have, and now I teach it to my students who are not creative writers. Why? Because this is a really good way to break down a character, right? So every protagonist and antagonist, notice I did not say every character. I said every protagonist and antagonist needs a goal, a motivation, and a conflict. The goal. What do they want? What do they want most in the world? Motivation. What, why do they want the thing that they want? What is motivating them to work towards it? And the conflict is who or what is getting in their way. And it's right there at conflict that the antagonist and the protagonist relate. Now you see why I say antagonist and protagonist get a goal, motivation, conflict, and not like a secondary character. First of all, nobody cares about them. Again, two purposes: to help the protagonist and to push the plot forward. Once they serve their purpose, they're done. Right? But we also have the antagonist and protagonist indirect conflict. Conflict creates story. And so if we have the goal motivation conflict of, say, the Joker versus the goal motivation conflict of Batman, they meet at conflict. And that conflict, that's your issue number 5 of the Batman series, or what they're 11 million now. That is probably right. That is the Christian Bale version, or the George Clooney version, or the Ben Affleck version, or the OG Michael Keaton version, which was the best version. Debate your mama, don't debate me. Right? That is what makes them clash. If you don't have that, you don't have a story. Story does not exist. End of. Make sense? So think about the movies and the stories and the books that you have read. Think about Story of an Hour. I'm going to actually have you think about that here in a second. Think about Trash, Miss Emily, and the unnamed narrator. They meet here at conflict. Right? So this is the chart that will set you free. You will see this chart and use this chart often. This is the GMC chart, or the goal motivation conflict chart. And so when we talk about character, one of the first things you're going to need to do is draw this chart, right? We actually have a whole lesson on goal motivation conflict that's coming up in between the two stories that we're reading. So it could be next Thursday or the Tuesday after, depending how fast we go through Trash. So I just want you to know that this exists, and this is the thing. I'm not going to go too in depth in talking about it, right? I'm not going to explain the internal or external. I'll explain that when we get to that lesson. But I do want you to know that this is a thing that will set you free and will help you do all the things through the paper, right? So one thing I do want to say, just an aside, about I've already had questions about the paper, the outline. So I want to tell you that they all kind of go together. So the story chart that you have to do, the outline, and the paper, they all kind of work together. So if you do the story chart well, you have enough to do the outline. If you do the outline well, the paper writes itself. So they're all connected. So what I don't want you to do is try to do the paper. You don't know enough to do the paper yet. You know enough to read the assignment sheet, but you don't know enough to do the paper. I need you to concentrate on the story chart, though. Think about the story chart. Think about this lesson and the stories that you need to do for the story chart, okay? You don't have to do it right now, but start thinking that way. They're all connected, so don't think about that paper quite yet. That's not due until like the 24th or something, right? And then like the chart is due the 17th or something, right? We got time. Just FYI, because I've already had questions and I'm like, oh my God, it's only week 2. Are we good online, Michael? All right, we've talked about the intersection of protagonist and antagonist. That's importante. That's your story. It's also your argument for your story. It's also what the writer is arguing about what it means to be a human on this planet. Yeah. All right. Do you guys have any questions at all about this lesson? Anything that I've talked about? Anything that this isn't clear? Anything that you want an explanation about? Yes, yes, sir. I'm sorry? No, no idea. Oh, we're not there. Oh, no, 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 no. Look, it's enough to get y'all to do just antagonist. Just enough, right? No, 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 no. So the more complex story elements like that, I don't cover because we're not reading any story that's long enough to do that, right? If we were reading something like, huh? I'm sorry. Yeah, we're starting. If we were reading something like The Handmaid's Tale, absolutely, right? Because it's everywhere. Um, or Parable of the Sower. Oh, that one's a good one. I'm not teaching it though. I'm sorry. But you should read it. Um, yes, but I need to focus. But good question. I was like, what the? Yes, good question. Anything else? All right, so this is what we're gonna do. People who are physically here, you're gonna do this activity here. All right. So the story that I've given you is Story of an Hour. It is on your, it's in your D2L, right? So what you want to do is get into groups of 3 to 4. And in those groups of 3 to 4, I want you to identify the protagonist and the antagonist. Once you've identified them, Then I want you to do the character arc for the protagonist and the antagonist. How did they start? How did they end? And then I want you to attempt the goal, motivation, conflict for both the protagonist and the antagonist. Yes, sir. Story of an hour. Yeah, boo. Yeah, story of an hour. Do story of an hour. If you feel compelled, if you feel moved to use trash and everybody in your group has read trash, then go for trash, right? But do story of an hour. So that's for you guys who are physically here. For you guys that are online, guess what? You guys together are a group. So, what I want you guys to do is more than likely using the chat function, because if you don't, we'll hear your entire conversation through the loudspeakers, um, is to do this together. Use story of an hour for you guys. Who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? The character arc, what's the character arc of the protagonist and the character arc of the antagonist? What is their goal, motivation, conflict? I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to do so. Ready to go? Good job, guys, online. You're doing great. Keep going. Go on, guys. Class. Thank you. So glad to have your beautiful attention. Okay, so we had conversations, and I want to have conversations with you. All right, I would love to hear about what your group talked about. Online folks, you guys are also part of this conversation. We will hear what you say. Those who say things, please say it loud enough for the online folks to say, unless you just want to come up here and just say it in front of the computer so they can for sure hear you. It's perfectly fine. We can stand right there and say it. But who do you guys have for the protagonist? Miss Mallard? Miss Mallard? Miss Mallard? Miss Mallard online? Miss Mallard? Yes? Somebody can unmute and say yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So here's the fun part. Who's the antagonist? Okay, I have Mr. Mallard. I have the idea of the husband. What do we have? Death being an antagonist. Interesting. Okay.
We said death also.
Sarah, you got your group said death as well.
Yeah.
So online group said death. All right. What did you guys say in the back? We had a whole conversation. So the lack of choice and freedom as the antagonist. Interesting. Anybody have anything else? Anything different? So do you see how everybody has something a little bit different, right? Everybody has something that they can now kind of write something about. There's as many interpretations of a story as there are people in the world. Always remember that. What you interpreted as an antagonist, another person interprets something else as an antagonist. And that's how you have conversations. Yay, literature is awesome. Woo-hoo. Okay, so have you guys, let's jump down to goal, motivation, conflict. Did you guys talk about goal, motivation, conflict? No? Y'all forgot? I see a yes in the back. Y'all did? So can I get a goal, motivation, conflict for your protagonist, please? Huh? She said yes. Oh, what was the motivation? Okay. Freedom. Okay, so goal, want to be away from her husband. Motivation, freedom. And then the conflict is that dude's still alive, man. That dude's still breathing on this earth, and I cannot be. So I'm gone. Essentially. He chunked deuce. All right. Anybody else have something different for their protagonist? How many people didn't get there yet? Fair, fair. You'll have time to play with that. Online folks, did you guys get to goal, motivation, conflict?
We put like
Yeah.
guilt. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Go ahead.
We said it could be guilt as well as disappointment. Like she was like guilty that she felt happy that her husband was dead, and that was like the conflict part.
Oh,
The
so the
goal was
conflict.
like freedom.
What did you get for motivation for her?
Uh,
It's okay if you didn't get there. It's okay.
yeah,
We're,
we didn't quite
it's
get there.
quite a, we'll talk about this ad nauseum, I promise you. All right. So do you see how that works? A little bit of how that works. Talking about character, we're talking about them more in depth. We're talking about them beyond the whole. There's two characters in this story, and this is main character. This is the secondary character. We're talking more about how they function in the story. That's what makes this a little bit different. Yeah. All right. So, any questions about anything? Y'all got homework. Where's your homework? Yep. Week 2 is due. All right. If you need me, come talk to me. Online folks, if you're in the 8 a.m., please send me an email that tells me that you were here, and I will mark you here. Other than that, have a fantastic weekend and I will see you on Tuesday. Bye. You guys did fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.